My cheating husband looked me dead in the eye and said, "Take your belongings and get out." What he didn't realize, I owned every single thing in that house. Please stick with me as I tell you my story. And don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Zamira. I'm 34 years old, a business consultant with clients across 3 states, and up until a few months ago, I was married to a man named Jaden. Jaden, 36, was charming, one of those guys who knew how to fill a room. He had this laugh that made strangers smile and the kind of confidence that made you feel safe, until it didn't. When we met, I thought I'd won the relationship lottery. He was attentive, funny, ambitious. On our 3rd date, he brought me jollof rice he claimed he made from scratch. Spoiler, it was his cousin's recipe. We moved fast. Bought a house. Decorated it together. I funded most of it, but I didn't mind. Love is a partnership, right? At least that's what I told myself. For a while things were good. We threw dinner parties, took weekend trips, even started talking about kids. But somewhere along the line, the temperature in the room began to change. Little things. Missed calls. Late nights. That gut feeling no woman wants to admit she's having. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until one night, Jaden left his phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Messages. Photos. "Can't wait to see you again, baby." My hands shook. My heart dropped. I confronted him, phone still in my hand, and instead of guilt or even denial, he laughed. Then he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Take your belongings and get out." He said it like I was a guest. Like I hadn't built every inch of that home, down to the monogrammed towels in the bathroom. That was the moment I stopped crying and started planning. Started small. A shift in the air. Jaden stopped talking to me the way he used to. No more little stories about his day. No teasing me about how I always oversalted the rice. He used to walk in and find me, kiss me on the forehead, ask if I'd eaten. Then suddenly, he'd come home and breeze past me like I was background noise. I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. I told myself maybe he was just tired. Work had been intense for both of us lately. I was juggling 3 major contracts at once. But it's funny how silence can speak louder than words. And his silence was screaming. He started working late. Sometimes he wouldn't come home until after midnight. I'd ask how the meeting went, and he'd just grunt, head straight for the shower. No warmth, no detail. One night I asked him outright, "Are you okay?" And he just said, "Why wouldn't I be?" Without even looking at me. Then came the phone. Once, he'd leave it lying around without a second thought. Now he treated it like it held national secrets. Always in his hand, always face down. He even took it with him into the bathroom. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, he'd casually tilt it away and mutter something about work. But it wasn't just the secrecy, it was the lies. I found a crumpled receipt in his jacket pocket. Some boutique hotel across town. I'd never been there. He claimed it was for a client meeting. At a hotel, at 9 p.m., and I was supposed to believe that. Then there were the credit card charges. I noticed them when I was reconciling our joint account, things I didn't recognize. Jewelry. A lunch for 2 at a sushi place I'd never been to. When I brought it up, he shrugged. Said it was fraud and that he cancelled the card. 3 days later, a new one came in the mail, and he conveniently forgot to hand it to me. When I confronted him, I didn't yell. I just asked questions. But that made it worse. He'd roll his eyes, call me dramatic, say I was inventing problems. "You always do this," he snapped once. "You just want a reason to fight." He made me feel like I was losing my mind. But I wasn't. I was waking up. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I finally saw what I wasn't supposed to. Jaden had left his phone unlocked on the kitchen island, something he never did anymore. I wasn't looking for anything that day. I was grabbing a glass of water when it buzzed again. My eyes caught the message preview. "Last night was perfect. You're so good to me," followed by a heart emoji. My chest tightened. I stared at the name. Joma. It wasn't unfamiliar. I'd heard it before, mentioned casually in passing. She worked at his firm in marketing, I think. I remember asking about her once when he came home talking about a campaign pitch. He'd brushed it off, said she was just loud and extra. Nothing serious. But what I saw on his screen told a very different story. I opened the thread. Photos, her in a silk robe, clearly in a hotel room, him grinning wide, shirtless, holding a glass of wine. Texts that weren't just flirty, they were intimate, familiar. There were inside jokes, pet names, stories only two people wrapped up in each other's lives would understand. I felt a strange kind of stillness. Not screaming, not crying. Just frozen. My fingers went cold before I even realized I was shaking. It wasn't just the cheating. It was how easily he had managed to lead two lives. The softness he used to give to me now belonged to her. The lies he whispered so easily to keep me calm had been rehearsed with someone else. I kept scrolling, almost unable to stop myself. Maybe months of messages, pictures from days I remembered him walking into our home, kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. I sat down on the edge of the couch and just stared at the floor. My mind was spinning, my stomach turning. But somewhere inside that chaos, a fire began to light. Quiet kind. Controlled. Focused. I could have confronted him that night. Could have thrown the phone at his face. Demanded an explanation. Let the rage take over. But something in me said no. Not yet. Instead, I placed the phone back exactly how he left it. Locked it. Walked upstairs. My heart was still breaking, but I had no intention of letting it shatter publicly. Not for him. Not for her. That night I started planning, not for a fight, but for something far better. I remember the day we signed the mortgage papers. Jaden grinned like he'd just won the lottery. He told everyone we bought the house like his name was on the deed. But it wasn't. Never was. See, long before Jaden came into my life, I'd built something for myself. My consulting business had taken off, and one of the first things I did was form an LLC. For tax purposes, sure, but also for protection. I didn't come from money. I earned every cent. So when it came time to buy a house, I made sure the deed, the loan, and every financial trail led back to me and my business. At the time, Jaden didn't care. "We're family now," he said when I mentioned it. "What's yours is mine, right?" I laughed it off then. Maybe I even believed it. But now, that paper trail. It was my shield. The furniture, each couch, table, lamp, every single thing came from my accounts. Half of it I bought before we were married. The rest, claimed as business expenses. Even the appliances were technically mine. I used a business credit card for all the purchases when we renovated the kitchen. Jaden never asked questions. He was just happy to show off on Instagram. The car he drove. My name on the title. My money paid the insurance. When I gifted it to him on his birthday, I wrapped the keys in a little box with a bow. He cried. Told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. And maybe in that moment I believed he meant it. But that was before the late nights, the perfume-scented shirts, the silence. After I read those texts with idioma, I didn't scream or break things. I started collecting documents. Quietly, I visited my lawyer, Chica, a sharp, unflinching woman I'd worked with during my early business years. I told her everything. She didn't flinch. "You've been smart," she said. "Now let's make sure you're covered on paper too." We went through everything. Titles, receipts, records. It was like holding a map to my own safety. Every drawer I opened in that house, every invoice I printed reminded me, he thinks this is his kingdom, but I built it. For weeks, I smiled through dinners, kissed him goodnight, and backed up every file I could find, not because I was scared but because I knew the end was coming, and I was going to be ready. The smell hit me before he even stepped fully through the door. Sweet, artificial, unfamiliar. Not mine. Not anyone he had a right smelling like. He didn't bother explaining. Just kicked off his shoes, loosened his tie, and walked right past me like I wasn't standing in the middle of the living room waiting for answers. I didn't ask where he'd been. At that point the question felt beneath me. He tossed his keys onto the table and muttered, "This isn't working." I stayed still. Then he turned and looked at me, straight in the eye. Cold. Like I was a houseplant he'd forgotten to water. "Pack your things," he said, with a little laugh under his breath. "You need to leave." The words floated in the air, heavy and absurd. I blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said, already walking toward the kitchen like we were done. "Take what's yours and go." It isn't it anymore. Something in me cracked. You're telling me to leave, I said, stepping forward. You cheat, you lie, you disappear for nights. And now you want to evict me like I'm some stray you picked off the street? He didn't even look up. Amara, don't make this dramatic. Snap. Dramatic. My voice rose without my permission. You think I'm being dramatic? After everything I've done for you, you have the audacity to come in here reeking of your little side project and talk to me like this house isn't mine. He finally turned to face me, that smirk spreading across his face, slow and mean. You really think it matters whose name is where? You think anyone cares? You can take your clothes, your little laptop, your wigs. Just go. That was the moment I stopped yelling. The rage drained, replaced by something sharper. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it. Arrogance. The entitlement. He believed every word he was saying. He truly thought he had the power to kick me out of the house I paid for. Decorated, maintained, protected. Smiled. Okay, I said softly. Okay. I'll go. I turned and walked upstairs. Not to pack, but to grab my phone. I opened the voice memo app and hit record. Then I walked back down, calm as ice. You want me gone, I said, keeping my voice level. Let's make sure we remember exactly how this went. He didn't even notice I was recording, but one day he would. I waited until the next morning. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened the night before. No apology. No explanation. Just arrogance like always. I sat across from him with a folder in my lap. He barely looked up. Thought you'd be gone by now. I opened the folder slowly, placed the first page on the table between us. That's the deed to this house, I said. In my name. Bought under my LLC. Your name isn't on it. Not now, not ever. He stared at the paper for a second, then scoffed. So what? We're married. Exactly, I replied. And even under marriage law, this property's protected. It was purchased before we tied the knot, with business funds. You've been living here as a guest, Jaden. A well-dressed squatter. He put down his phone. Finally, could see the shift. The confidence in his face faltered, just a little. I slid another document across the table. You remember the car you drive? The one I gave you for your birthday. Still in my name. Insurance, registration, everything. Pay for it. It's not yours. Now he was quiet. I reached for the next set of papers. Receipts, account statements, a neat little collection of proof. The bed you sleep on. The TV you watch. The fridge full of food. All paid for with my money. Half of it's claimed as business assets. So when you told me to take what's mine, I leaned in, looked him dead in the eye. You should have packed a bag. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked around the room, at the sofa, the artwork on the walls, the rug beneath his feet, and it was like he was seeing it all for the first time. Not as a man in his home, but as a stranger in someone else's. He stood up like he might argue. You're doing too much. No, I said, standing too. I'm doing exactly enough. And don't worry, I'm not calling the cops or making a scene. I just want you out. By tonight. The silence stretched. I mean it, Jaden. You wanted me gone. Fine. I'll go for a walk. I'll grab dinner. I'll be out for a few hours. When I come back, you and your cologne-drenched wardrobe need to be gone. He blinked, stunned. I could see the wheels turning, trying to find an angle, a way to claw back control. But there wasn't one. At first, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, mouth slightly open, like the world had tilted and he couldn't catch his balance. I walked past him, grabbed my keys, and left the house without looking back. I drove around for hours just breathing, letting the air clear out the years of noise he had stuffed into my head. When I returned, the lights were still on. He hadn't packed a thing. He was sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. The moment he heard the door, he jumped up like I'd come back to save him. Amara, wait. Just listen to me. No. I messed up. No. I was stupid, I was selfish, please. Don't do this. Kept walking. I don't even care about her, he said, chasing me down the hall. It was a mistake. Igioma doesn't mean anything, she was just there. I stopped and turned slowly. That's supposed to make me feel better. His face crumpled. You're my wife. No, I said quietly. I was your safety net. He started crying. Not dramatic sobs. Just slow, pathetic tears. I'd never seen him look so small. Don't make me leave, please. Let me stay tonight. Just tonight. For a split second, something in me almost bent. The years we spent together, the way I used to love him, it all hovered for one breath. One night, I said. Guest room. Don't mistake this for forgiveness. He nodded, eyes wide like a child being granted mercy. I went upstairs. Locked my door. Slept in my house in my bed alone, and slept well for the first time in months. By morning I thought maybe he'd leave quietly, pack his bag, say his final plea and go. I was wrong. At 8:17 a.m. the doorbell rang. I found Jaden standing at the door in sweatpants and no shirt, trying to block the view behind him. Then Igioma's voice cut through. Jaden, who's at the door? She peeked around him, her makeup half done, hair wrapped in a scarf, like she thought she had walked into her new domain. Her eyes met mine. There was a flicker of confusion, then realization. Smiled. Not out of politeness, but victory. Igioma, I said calmly. You're standing in my house. Kindly remove yourself. She looked at Jaden. You said she moved out. I turned to him. I said one night. It's morning. She opened her mouth, closed the door. Chaos exploded behind it. Muffled shouting, pleading. Something crashed. I didn't care. I walked to the kitchen, made my tea, and let them unravel. The first morning after he was gone, I woke up and listened. No footsteps. No drawers slamming. No heavy sighs meant to guilt me into silence. Just birds outside the window and the soft hum of the fridge downstairs. I lay there longer than usual, not because I was tired but because I could. For once, I wasn't bracing for tension. I didn't rush to fill the space he left. I let it sit. I wanted to feel it. Every quiet corner, every untouched chair. That silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Each day I took a little more back. I started rearranging the house. Not out of necessity, but out of intention. I moved furniture, donated old clothes, burned a candle I'd been saving for no reason at all. I made the space mine again, piece by piece. My mother, Ngozi, came to visit a few days later. She brought stew and a knowing look. She didn't ask for explanations. Just hugged me and said, "Peace is better than pride, my daughter." She sat in my kitchen like she'd always belonged there, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to explain my choices to anyone. Keisha came by that weekend, arms full of plant cuttings and a bottle of something expensive. "Plants give off energy," she said, handing me a monstera leaf like it was a weapon. "This house needs new life." We talked late into the evening, about everything and nothing. She didn't try to fix anything. She just listened. I didn't realize how much I'd missed being heard without being questioned. That night, I sat with a notebook in my lap and wrote down everything I had ignored for too long. Not about Jaden. About me. The small warnings I'd brushed aside. The moments I laughed to hide discomfort. The way I'd learned to make myself smaller to avoid his moods. It wasn't about blame. It was about clarity. I began making a list. Not of goals or dreams, just truths. Things I knew about myself. That I was resilient. That I was observant. That my instincts were never the problem. And then, quietly, I started to write down lessons. Warnings I would have shared with my younger self. Signs I'd tell my niece to look out for. Things no one taught us because we were too often told to endure. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even recovery. It was remembering myself. It was late afternoon when I heard a knock at the door. Slow, hesitant. I opened it to find Jaden standing there, thinner than I remembered, eyes hollow. He looked nothing like the man who used to strut through this doorway like he owned it. He didn't even say hello. "She left me," he muttered. "I didn't ask who. I didn't need to." He glanced down at his shoes like they might offer him a line to recite. "Igioma, she found someone else. And I lost my job last week. They're downsizing." I said nothing. I just thought maybe we could talk. Maybe there's still. "There's not," I said, my voice quiet but unshaking. He looked up at me startled, as if he expected tears. As if he expected me to see him broken and feel obligated to help fix him. You made your choices, Jaden, I said. And I made mine. He tried to laugh, bitter and empty. You really just moved on, huh? I didn't answer. I didn't owe him a defense. He looked around the doorway like maybe he thought I'd invite him in anyway. Like pity might give him a seat at my table again. Go home, I said softly. Wherever that is now. And I closed the door. There's a difference between losing someone and losing yourself, and I made sure I only did one. I spent too long mistaking survival for love, giving grace where I should have given boundaries. But pain has a way of clearing your vision. You start to see the patterns, the excuses, the slow unraveling of your identity, all for the sake of holding on to something that never deserved you. What happened wasn't the end of me. It was the start of something better, stronger. Quieter, yes, but fuller. I stopped trying to rewrite his choices and started rewriting my story. People ask if I ever got closure. The truth is, closure isn't a door someone else closes for you. It's the moment you stop waiting for them to explain themselves and realize they already did. With every lie, every silence, every shift in their eyes when they thought you weren't watching. I don't need revenge. I don't need apologies. I have peace. And honestly, that's more than he'll ever have, because sometimes, the best revenge is letting someone live with the consequences they created.